Yo, what's up guys, hope you guys are doing good. So today we are going to see what if Daimyos helped Uzumaki clan when they are attacked part 2. Hope you will enjoy this video, so before we start please like the video and subscribe to our channel and hit bell notification, it motivates me to upload more fanfics for my lovely audience. So let's get started. Kanahagakure, the village hidden in the leaves. It could be debated that the name of the village sounds like someone just picked up a leaf and felt like there was significance in naming a whole settlement after one. Technically speaking, that's what happened when Uchiha Madara, after several fights with Senju Hashirama and a defeat that altered the course of history as the precursor to the unification of clans that form a village, took a dried out leaf and mentioned Kanahagakure no Sato to his friend when mentioning a name for the village. After a short debate about who would name the village better, it was expected. It is self-explanatory. A plethora of forests cover the entire village, and is on easily sustainable land. It is now more than 75 years into its existence and it has seen it all. 3 wars against its 4 great counterparts and 4 shinobi have been privileged to be called shadows that protect the village. First Hokage, Senju Hashirama, second Hokage, Senju Tobarama, third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, and the 4th Hokage, Namikaze Minato, who was no longer in the world due to the end result of a skirmish among him, and Uchiha claiming to be Madara and the Kyuubi no Kitsune that wreaked havoc after being released into the village. So far, it has been 4 years since the attack happened and the village was graced by a mysterious but dignified visitor at the main entrance of the village, the on-gate. Black, short sleek hair with a fringe hanging above what appears to be blue eyes. Wearing a black slim-fit civilian suit with semi-casual brown loafers, the guest approaches the guards of the village along with several others who are willing to enter the village for whatever purpose. State your name and purpose for your visit, please, requested Hagane Katetsu. Azuki Tobio, a representative of the Daimyo of the Land of Water's office. I requested an audience with the Hokage a few months before this point. I hope these papers confirm that fact, said the now named Tobio as he presented his passport and written letter from the Hokage with permission to meet. Everything is in order. Welcome to Konoha. Enjoy your day today, good sir, said Kamizuki Izumo. Tobio bowed to the guards and waited for the Anbu to escort him to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower. Frail, old and wrinkled. If one did not have knowledge of Sarutobi Hiruzen, then such a description would be assumed. At this point, the reinstated 3rd Hokage has the underneath to hide his true abilities as one of the most skilled and powerful ninja in the elemental nations. Widely known as the Professor and also coined exaggeratingly, he thinks Shinobi no Kami, god of shinobi, he is one of the most knowledgeable people in the world in the shinobi arts. Until I find a way to make this paperwork disappear, it looks like I'll stay with this bane of existence. Hiruzen sighed as mountains of paperwork accumulated in stacks inside his office, a burden he could not help but carry. The Kyuubi attack that happened 4 years ago surely took a lot out of him and the rest of the village. Even though they still had strength in spades, it took them painstaking lengths to reclaim it, seeing as how they lost their most powerful shinobi to date. Well, a village is as strong as its anchor, and at least Hiruzen could still protect the village he watched his sensei build from the ground up. The good old days. His thoughts were cut short when one Anbu Black Ops captain, Inu, suddenly flickered near the Hokage. With a messenger scroll, Hiruzen read it and uttered the word, enter. Almost immediately, a guy in a silver civilian suit entered the office. Good day, Hokage-sama. I do hope that you are feeling good as of now. The Daimyo sends his greetings, despite Kurigakure being involved in a civil war, greeted Tobio. Good day, Azuki Dono. Please take a seat, directed Hiruzen while he took in his guest's suddenly posh appearance. He then commanded his Anbu guards to leave and he performed a sealing technique to prevent further eavesdropping, if any. Well, I trust that you still have my successor's children protected, right? Asked Hiruzen. Well, of course. They are my favorite nephews after all. Although, they're technically my grandnephews. If you remember clearly, they are my brother's grandchildren, mentioned Tobio in a jovial manner before being serious. I just came to tell you that I'll be returning them to the village next year, as per our agreement. A fair warning to put here on the table, though. Despite their young age, they're powerful. At least, for their age and according to the standards my people set. There should be no problem regarding their safety. All I ask is that you provide additional protection and surveillance, because they'll be in multiple punches, no matter how careful they could get, after all. They're 4-year-old beasts but 4-year-olds nonetheless. Tobio stated and warned. It would appear that Hiruzen had a very strong sense of what was being mentioned to him would bring a change in the village. What change? Who knew? He didn't. At least, not in that moment. I'll take your word for it. By the way, you look way too young to be 7 years my senior. I know you said there's a secret to it and you showed me how, but it still doesn't make sense. Well, at least, if a less knowledgeable person looks at it from their perspective, said Hiruzen, introducing a new topic for the conversation. The seemingly young man sitting in front of Hiruzen was approaching 65 on December 22nd, just 1 month before the next meeting, and it used to bother Hiruzen that this person could look like he was 25. To cut an argument of him using genjutsu to hide his actual age, he showed him that it was his natural appearance. Nevertheless, it still piqued his interest. He could already imagine one other person gaining some interest, some being used very loosely in this context. Well, as far as I am concerned, looking underneath the underneath can be very disappointing. What you see is what you get. I believe that you'll be shocked with the kid's abilities to analyze exactly why that's the case. Speaking of which, I think they'll be able to update you on that gift I gave you for your re-coronation into the position, said Tobio in amusement. Well, as much as I want to talk about the children and their development, as you put it, I have to make sure that this paperwork disappears from my sight. Legally, said Hiruzen before his guest prepared to leave. Well, I guess I should leave it to you, then. By the way, is it okay if I could ask for one Azuki Yugao to come accompany me back to Mizu no Kuni? I could use a conversation with my fellow clansman, asked Tobio before standing up and approaching the door. Certainly. Neko, he said after releasing the seal he used earlier. Suddenly, an Anbu kunoichi with long, violet hair flickered to stand near the guest. Hello, Anbu-san. Or should I say, Masumi. The Anbu kunoichi took her mask off, with permission granted from the Hokage, to reveal an oval-shaped face with a healthy toned complexion regardless of the mask worn every day and night. Dark gray eyes met blue ones, and with a slight twitch of her red lips. Tu-chan. She hugged her father in the most heart-warming scene the Hokage was graced with. The joy of having a family that cares for you simply knows no equal, no matter if you are related or not. This signified what every Hokage is put in their position as lines of defense to protect the unification of clans and individuals into one big family. Even though he lost most of his immediate family, including Bawako, his wife, during the Kyuubi attack, things had to stay this way, for the sake of the village along with its future. Seeing how Hiruzen was reminiscing, Tobio decided that was his cue to leave. Until we meet again, Hokage-sama, said Tobio before exiting with Yugao. Until then, Azuki Dono, said Hiruzen. On gate. Well, at least you're coming back with me to the islands this time. It's been a long time. Your nephews miss you, said Tobio as he gave Azumo and Katetsu papers for Yugao's journey. It's only been 4 months since I last saw them. Smart crybabies. At least, I got to say goodbye to Hayate-kun before I left, said Yugao. She whispered that last part to herself, hoping no one heard her. Hayate-kun, I guess I found another dummy to slice up to bits. I mean, she's only 16. Tobio thought. At the thought of his daughter being taken away, he got angry, even if it was for a minute. He could not help but be overprotective. Hayate aside, it's time you finish their basic Kenjutsu kata for the Uzumaki style. They'll need it, he admonished. With a furious blush on her face, Yugao looked down and mumbled some incoherent phrases before saying. Well, then, the tides of Uzu have turned. 5 years after the Kyuubi attack. In the Hokage Tower, an old but energetic jittery, at the moment man with a pipe in his mouth and a receding hairline is pacing up and down his office in the hopes of calming himself down, but fails horrendously. His reason for all this? Anbu, he called, firmly. Just then, 2 of his guards appear, already kneeling beside him. We haven't been able to find him, let alone the person that instigated this mess. Permission to increase the radius of our search, Hokage-sama, mentioned Neko as the kunoichi answered the question before it reached her. Very well. By the way, rendezvous with Ryu at the southern section of Senju Park. I believe that he found something of importance, and having an idea of what that is, give him authorization to proceed. Hiruzen commanded. Understood, Hokage-sama. With that, the guards left in a smokeless Shunshin en route to Senju Park. I really hope Tobio Dono doesn't chew my hair off after this incident. He could be just as menacing as Kushina-chan, Kami rest her soul. Thought Hiruzen with a shudder as he thought of the mini-war that might come with this incident. Naruto, Shoyo, sorry for not being a good grandfather figure to you, he said softly as he sat down on his chair with a somber face on him. What happened, you ask? Walking around the street with a white shirt with an orange swirl in the center, and khaki pants on, we stumble upon a red-haired boy with whiskers on his cheeks. The body is a mess. Unconscious and bruised, he was assaulted by a mob of angry villagers who then proceeded to beat the crap out of him. Kill the demon boy, they shouted. Unable to get away from their clutches, the boy just gave up and let the villagers have their way. To the boy, it had been like that for as long as he could remember. With the mob, everything was coming full circle. They lost loved ones during that Kyuubi attack and decided that they needed a scapegoat for it. Who better than the child who became the Kyuubi Jinchuriki? As they were about to wrap things up, they were cut down by a few masked ninja, each donning a black attire with a white mask with colored accents. These were the Anbu Black Ops. One named Karasu decided to approach the unconscious boy and take him to the village hospital, knowing full well that the child would not be immediately helped. Funny how a village can preach peace but decide on eradicating the very reason, or one of the reasons they have this peace. With that thought, he shunshin first to the Hokage Tower. The other Anbu followed suit after disposing of the mob. Hokage Tower. We now enter the office of one of the most powerful figures in the elemental nations. Behind the desk, we see a frail old signing a gigantic pile of paperwork with his right hand and holding a smoking pipe with his left. Gray hair with a receding hairline, with 3 lines tracing each of his eyes to his cheeks, we see Sarutobi Hiruzen, Sandaime Hokage of Konohagakure and the professor. I really wish this village could see what a blessing the Yondaime left for us. I'm sorry, Kushina. Your boy is really not living the way you wished he would. I failed. He said in depressing thought. He sensed a presence approaching him and uttered. Anbu. Suddenly, 5 figures including a young boy appeared. Report. He ordered. The one with the Karasu mask replied. He was attacked by a mob of villagers who were hell-bent on killing him with digging forks, knives and other household tools. I sensed a disturbance in his chakra network. I then came to the conclusion that he was put under a genjutsu. Before the mob could do any further damage, we dispatched them. Usagi, bring me a medic from the hospital who is on standby. I need them to come immediately. Hi. The one named Usagi vanished in smoke-less Shunshin. Anbu, dismissed. Karasu, Inu, stay. Hiruzen ordered. He figured there was more to the report. Hiruzen paid attention to the injured boy for more than a minute and what he saw left him numb. The boy's eyes were open but weren't responding to light or any presence in the room, almost like he was in a coma or just dead, but that was not what he saw. At least, not the only detail to this mess. Upon very close inspection, he saw what appeared to be a seal on the boy's forehead, clumsily covered by a henge that was clearly sustained by foreign chakra. This had something to do with the slight shaking they saw once the boy entered the office. Judging by that, it was clear that it was a very painful experience for the child if the constant amount of tears was anything to go by. As he was about to snap at the remaining Anbu for such a blunder, the doctor he sent for arrived in a Shunshin alongside Usagi, already trying her level best to keep her composure under the circumstances of being summoned suddenly by Hokage-sama. Checking on the boy's vitals, she noticed that the woods were slowly closing themselves, so she checked for signs of chakra poisoning, which weren't apparent. According to the checkup she just did, the boy was slowly recovering, but she couldn't find the reason as to why the boy was still shaking. All she could understand was that the boy's mental activity was intense. She relayed the information to the Hokage and the rest of the audience. Just then, Neko entered, with a scroll in hand. Hiruzen took it as it was and began to open and read the scroll. It read, "We found a hole covered with what appeared to be Mokuden chakra and sealing array that Neko managed to decipher and release upon finding it to be a moderately strong barrier fuinjutsu. Upon entering this hole and traveling approximately 50 meters below the surface, we reached a makeshift tunnel and split into pairs once we entered it and found multiple pathways to certain places. I myself followed one certain pathway that led to an underground tomb. Hokage-sama, I do not know for sure if whatever that is in the tomb has a sort of fail-safe in the event that someone tried to ransack it, but for some reason, it resonated with my chakra and the tomb cracked a little bit and stopped. Again, I do not know if this should stay hidden or not, but something tells me that I just stumbled upon the very first S-rank secret since the founding of this village. As of writing this report, I was outside of the hole, monitoring it for any suspicious people or, in the case of the seal and primitive Mokuden created, someone who decided to call it home. Awaiting orders. Ryu. The report was very short and did not have a whole lot of details or insensitive information, but judging by how Sandaime looked like he lost all hope, meant that something big happened, or something that even he was not supposed to know, just decided to rear its bothersome existence in Hiruzen's face. Everyone except the Iryo Nin, you are dismissed, he said with a growl. Not wanting to hear it twice, everyone left in their own shunshin and left the doctor to the patient. Mindscape. The redhead finds himself walking through a maze in what could be a sewer. He did not know how he got there. He only had an inkling of what might happen. Nevertheless, he needed to get out of here. He walked, and walked until he was just a few meters from a cage, with a paper written, Fuin, in kanji. Being a child, he was obviously curious as to what was in that cage, but for some reason, he decided to just sit down. He looked at the cage for a few seconds before closing his eyes, relaxing, all the while controlling his breathing. What's this? My jailer finally decides to visit. He suddenly heard, coming from the cage. Pleased to meet you. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I'm not sure if I'm being forward or not, but I'd like to ask a question, or rather confirm something. Is this my mindscape, and if so, are you the being the villagers confuse Shoyo and I with? Asked Naruto, sitting in a seiza position with his head bowed down. He had so many questions he wanted to ask, but he felt like he could ask these ones first, as they were the most important. What an odd mortal you are. At least you're more polite than the other red chatterbox and royal pompous asshole of a lady. I am known as the Kyuubi no Kitsune, and as you mentioned, I'm confused with you and you little brother. Judging by how relaxed you are, you knew all of this already and probably realized that I'm the Yang constituent, not to mention, you learned about us Biju from your home studies. Kyuubi stated. Naruto was floored, but tried his best to not look the part. Part of the reason was because this was one of parts of the Diadarabachi, or Jubi in layman terms. He tried to stay calm and was managing. Quick question, though, what brings you to your mindscape and how did you get here? Asked Kyuubi. Well, I don't know how I came here, Kyuubi-san. I was just trying to get back to Sho-chan back at the Uzumaki complex when I was suddenly attacked by a lot of people. I assume that I'm now unconscious, so that's probably how I came here. As to what brings me here, I don't know. But I'm here. Might as well get some questions in myself. Offered Naruto. He then asked, how did you get sealed inside Shoyo and I? Silence brewed for a few seconds and Naruto was starting to feel tense. The Beast Ju looked at him with one eye, released a grunt and said to Naruto, well, I'll admit that you're quite mature for your age, but you're still not ready for the reason why I'm sealed here. It's simply because you have no means to act upon the answer. Confused, Naruto tried to argue for an answer, but he noticed that the fox was feeling agitated by that particular question. Reluctantly letting the issue go, he decided to just leave. How do I leave? Asked Naruto. Just release a little amount of chakra from your body to shake yourself. That little bit of movement will wake you up. Now, leave me alone, growled Kyuubi. Remembering the lessons on how to sense chakra for the first time as taught by his grand uncle, he pulled some chakra and released it. Suddenly, he vanished in a swirl of water. That should also cause a commotion, wherever he is right now, thought Kyuubi. Real world, Hokage Tower. Neko was busy checking the seal placed on Naruto's forehead and found it to be a seal designed to knock someone out and rewire their senses. A Fuinjutsu version of the Temple of Nirvana. With just 2 fingers placed on his forehead, Neko released a chakra pulse on the seal and it broke. She was surprised when, just a second later, chakra just spread throughout Naruto's body. A huge amount, if the sudden appearance of 5 more Anbu men was any indication. Giving them the sign to stand down, Hiruzen approached the slowly awaking child to see if anything had changed in him. Naruto-kun, are you alright? He asked, visibly worried. I'm okay, Gigi. At least, I hope I am. Naruto replied, as tired as he was. For someone who went through a mob attack, and survived, he was as weary as one would expect him to be. For Hiruzen, it was a sign of blunders that came with poor decision-making. He sighed. This was never an easy job to have, especially when he had to consider the livelihood of everyone in the entire village. You have people trying to kill or eradicate the one reason they're safe, and they don't even back down from it. Not even when you put a law against harming the child. The bruises and sloppy seal on the forehead are telltale signs of that. While I'd want to know what happened in that attack, you have to go back to your house. I'm sure Shoyo is waiting for you, said Hiruzen. Naruto could only nod to this. The redhead had a long list of thoughts running around in his mind, but all of it would have to wait until he went back home. Safely. With a hand ruffling Naruto's hair, Hiruzen kneeled, looked at Naruto with a tender smile and wished him a good night, before Neko carried the boy on her back and used a shunshin to escort him to the compound. Hiruzen went back to his desk and faced the nearest window. How would you have handled this situation, Minato, Tobirama-sensei, Hashirama-sensei? The village basically hates those two, save for a few individuals. The rest are just indifferent, thought Hiruzen. I really need to protect those two. For the good of everyone. Especially those two. Wouldn't you agree, Kushina? I think having Yugao live with them is a plan. She's an Uzumaki by birth, so it makes sense to assign her to those two. A little political scuffle shouldn't be a problem, but those two will finally have a semblance of a childhood. He smiled as he looked at a letter with the Uzumaki swirl in red as the insignia. He could make out the words, permission to adopt the Uzumaki twins. He wrote a little note, saying, enjoy your time with your family, Uzumaki Yugao. He looked at Ryu, who had just come back from his investigation, handed him the note and told him to take it to Yugao. With a shunshin, Ryu left and there was a little bit of pleasant silence in the air for Hiruzen. There was something bugging him about Ryu's report, but he forgot what it was. Better think about it when I'm more calm, he thought. Senju Park, underground. The tomb Ryu found looked a miniature war zone. The coffin was blown to smithereens and next to it was a little sapling growing. Whose grave was it? What does this all mean for Konohagakure? Uzushiogakure no Sato, a year after the Kyubi incident. A serene landscape disguised as a pile of rubble caused by an alliance of 3 great lands and their respective hidden villages, the village hidden in the whirling tides is magnificent stronghold in its compact size. An island that is surrounded whirlpools with a given interval on dissipating these pools, known only to the leader of the village. A few plains form a land border to the village, which is further strengthened by a seal formation that can bear the weight and destruction of a single Bijudama from Diodaraboki or Jubi 10 tails. A group of 4 individuals had just entered the village, going through all required regulations at checkpoints, on the shore, at the plains and at the village gate. Tobio, Yugao and the Uzumaki twins were being accompanied to the cage residence at the center of the village. Showers of crimson, ebony and blonde-haired were up and about in the village, just being nonchalant about their day, as they should. No need to worry about an attack that happened a while ago. An attack that forced them to relocate and re-evaluate their situation in war and the power balance. Cage complex. Yugao-chan, how have you been in Konoha? Tobio asked, with a barely hidden scowl. As you know, I personally was treated okay. Those two, though. Even a worm would be better taken care of than they were. And they only had just a month of life to their names. Yugao replied, albeit with a wince. She had received a scroll with some pretty terrible news regarding the twins, and, safe to say, livid was an understatement when it came to her father. She looked at her 2 nephews and smiled sadly. They would have to become shinobi, and no one was going to take no for an answer, simply because village politics demanded it. As they made it to the residence, she laid the twins into a cradle and watched them sleep like peace was there already. She vowed that day, if Konoha ever decided to hurt any of them, hell would rain. Konohagakure no Sato, same night. Hiruzen tried to keep up the secret of the new Jinchuriki pair in Konoha, but somehow, This leaked into the civilian gossip circle and was causing havoc, with riots that could have started civil wars. An investigation into who leaked this information revealed that Nei Foundation was responsible for this. Of course, the three elders of the village refused to verify this, saying that they would not jeopardize their village in any way possible. Well, at least Kaharu and Homura tried to placate the Sandaime and ease him. The same really could not be said for Danzo, though. One of Hiruzen's students, Jiraiya, came back from one of his tours around the world and came back with an interesting set of intel. While passing through the border of Aim no Kuni and Kawa no Kuni, an informant of his relayed to him the current situation of Amegakure. The students he taught during the Second Ninja World War, Konan, Nagato and Yahiko, were alive and had managed to usurp Sanshou no Hanzo due to this little detail. Around 20 years ago, Hanzo attempted to assassinate the trio after organizing a meeting with them as leaders of peace-promoting Akatsuki. Danzo himself, as well as some of his higher-ranked Nei Anbu, were there as reinforcement. Safe to say, their whole operation was a fail. Hanzo had even taken Konan hostage and Danzo was trying to get Yahiko killed for some reason known to him, and he was ecstatic when Yahiko ran to a frozen Nagato who held a kunai out and stabbed him with it in his gut. Yahiko fell unconscious. A red dragon rose in rage. As Hanzo and Danzo tried to fight them, Nagato, in his rage, summoned the Gedu Mizu, which spewed out ethereal dragons that sucked out chakra and life force from whatever it touched, as a form of Ninjendo, human path. It decimated most of the forces, while others were trying to attack Nagato, who just stretched his hand out and deflected them using Tendo, Diva Path. Soon, Konan was rescued, and only 2 enemy shinobi remained. Danzo managed to flee, leaving Hanzo to fend off Konan and Nagato by himself. He barely escaped with his life with a well-timed transportation jutsu. Yahiko, within an inch of life, was thrown into the King of Hell's mouth and was healed completely. Currently, the trio ruled over AIM, with the rest of the world none the wiser, except for Jiraiya and Hiruzen. Konoha Cage Tower. Speaking of those two, they were in a deep discussion about this intel. While most of it came 20 years too late, it did not matter. Because at the very least, they managed to get Konoha into an agreement with the bordering AIM. A cease agreement. Sensei, you really have to do something about Danzo. He's busy being a tyrannical bitch about everything. Nay, the attack on Akatsuki, the Kyuubi incident, and the desire to use those two as a weapon. Do we really have to get permission from the Daimyo to off him? Jiraiya pointed out, albeit like a child throwing a tantrum. The cage sighed. I understand that you have zero faith in keeping Danzo alive, and at some point, he needs to be dead. But I still have need of his services, somewhat. Especially considering the fact that you haven't found a way to bypass his Juinjutsu yet. You do realize that once you can remove it, it's free estate, right? Hiruzen replied jokingly. Jiraiya snorted. The two shared a very short laugh before carrying on with plans of village safety. I hope I can create a whole new village that can promote peace, if not the world, Minato. It's what your sons, my 2 little rascals, deserve for saving us, the two thought solemnly. As they looked outside the window and see the night life of the village, they wonder how much more blood, sacrifices and tears it would take them to achieve. Jiraiya realized that he could not wait for a child of prophecy to pave the way. Hiruzen was not willing to see another generation of shinobi lose their lives for their village and country in pursuit of worldwide peace, but he would have to stomach it. After all, he, alongside many of his troops, were mere embers in the grand scheme that is the will of fire, and they will see Hashirama Sensei's dream through to the end. Another day dusted. Another experience in the hot seat. Another chance to improve things for the king of the village. Another step towards peace. Man, was he feeling content. Current time. Hiruzen still remembered the lengths he took to train himself to be in his sensei's shoes and still struggled to fathom how he even wanted to bear this weight. Because, one of his agents, Weasel, entered with 2 toddlers covered in Suna wind coats. Bearing a weight of their own. The coup d'etat has been quelled and the Uchiha clan has been reduced to nothing more than a few civilians, one of the little ones said. Why did he have to assign anyone to kill for the village in the first place, if it meant that he'd have to send children to their deaths? Because, standing in front of him, were 3 of the sweetest children turned assassins. Hiruzen rose up from his seat, ordered Anbu to seal off the room and walked up to the kids. He hugged them, as a father would his kids. As they cried into their jijis, hands, an unwritten rule was established. Let it be known that whoever made Uzumaki Shoyo, Uchiha Itachi and Uzumaki Naruto almost give up serving their country would have to die a miserable death. Hiruzen included.